Welcome in everyone. Today's video is part of our Unusual Whales educational series. This is typically I will do a kind of beginner friendly video. This will be maybe more intermediate here. We're going to be going between the different dashboards here. I'd like to kind of show how I like to find those big spikes in the net call premiums there. So you see the big net call premium gaps that I'll talk about every once in a while here. I'm looking for a big spike in them or a big drop off in them. And then we'll also do that for gamma as well. So I'm just going to kind of show everybody how I use the combination of the dashboards to possibly find some flow that sticks out. And I was planning on doing this kind of in real time, but I did want to have some examples. So I did kind of go ahead before I made this video and I found 4 good examples. So we'll have 2 examples of the net premium gaps and then 2 of the daily gamma gaps there. So what we're gonna start out here is we're gonna obviously kind of look at multiple different dashboards throughout this, but we are gonna start out with the market map. So what I initially want to do here is I want to find names that are sticking out net premium gap wise. So we're gonna start with the net premiums there. So to get to the market map here, you just come up to that flow data, you come down to market map, and that will pull your market map in here. So just kind of a quick breakdown of what the market map is. It's your screener results in pretty much bubble dot plot format here, and you can see kind of a little better breakdown here. So it just kind of tells you, it converts your screener results into a scatter plot pretty much. So you get that visualization there. Versus if you're a numbers person, I mean, you can have this in table format. I'm a visual person, so I like the visualization here. So you can see how I have this set up, and I typically don't change the first one and the second one. I usually just kind of change that y-axis more than anything, but again, you can fully customize this however you want. This is just how I have it set up, and I typically will just leave it on volume. So we're going to try to find spikes in the net call premiums here. So I'm going to come over here to that y-axis, and I'm going to drop this down to option premium, and I want to see net premium calls here. So the cool thing about this now is you can see how a lot of these names are pretty much in line here. What I'm looking for is here, get off there, come on. What I'm looking for here is outlying names. So I'm looking for spikes to the upside and to the downside that are not in a grouped area here. So what I like to do from this point is I will just kind of click the names that are sticking out here. So we're just going to pick some of these. SNDK is one of the ones that we're going to be talking about, so I got to make sure to do that. And then WDC is also one that could be in the bearish premiums. I will show you the bearish premiums as well too. So we are so like I'll click on Tesla here, Meta, Costco. So this will and again, this is just how I do it. Feel free to kind of fine tune this so it can work a little better than you. Let's do Oxy because that's to the upside as well. So this is just, again, how I like to do it. Feel free to fine tune things how you'd like to do it. But so now I have my names that were kind of outliers in here. So I will just kind of work back from the tabs. I usually will pop it out 14 days. It gives you a kind of a mid shorter term view there, and I mean, you pop it out 30 days too. I'm a big fan of the 14 day, but again, this doesn't need to remain static. You can change this however you want. So 14 days, I'm looking at NVIDIA here. So we had a large amount of net call premium kind of drop off here already, and prices already kind of essentially followed that, and prices already extended below it. So this is something that's not really sticking out to me. Let's look at MU here. Pop this 14. So MU is an interesting one here. This could be something of interest possibly for you because you see a big drop off here in that net call premium here. So, and a lot of negative volume here, and you'll typically see, and again, everything's not 100%, but more often than not, when you see these big spikes in net call premium to the upside and or downside, price does tend to gravitate to those after a certain amount of time. Again, they create these gaps, so that's where I'm getting that net call premium gap from there. So and price again tends to like to fill gaps at some point. Now again, anything can happen. It's not a sure thing. There's multiple things that go into the net call premium, like this person. What caused this spike could have been them exiting at the ask, and it's showing ask side call premium. So this is kind of where this video is going to help you find maybe multiple data points to kind of combine that. So again, just kind of looking at that net premium here, you have a big drop in that premium on Friday here. So we also had a big drop back here on March 12th. So just kind of combining that data, and that's why I like that 14-day view, because you can see that recent history there. And this would technically be an unfilled gap, and then this would also be technically an unfilled gap here as well. So MU was not one of our names on the chart here. It's going to be SNDK and WDC. So this would be one of interest potentially here. We might revisit it. We'll see here. So MU would have been interesting. So SNDK here. So I popped this out 14. So again, you can just see how you have that big drop in net call premium here on Friday. A lot of kind of put volume coming in here. Here is a nice spike in put premium as well too. So SNDK, what I do from here is I typically would just screenshot this and put it off on the desktop so I can come back and visit it. So SNDK is one that we will be looking at here. Tesla, let's just take a peek, 14 days. Nothing super interesting here, but kind of a good example of the net call premium gaps filling here. Again, you just see a lot of that call essentially outflow here. That's what I like to call it. Big spikes down, and the theory is that price will gravitate towards those gaps and eventually fill them. So now, if you're looking at on 311 here 10 days ago, you just start seeing that, and hey, maybe you found some flow that you liked, you got some puts, and you can see that price eventually came and quote unquote filled that gap there. So this one, nothing of interest on this one right now. Meta, let's take a peek here. Again, another one where you see a lot of that kind of call outflow coming in here, and they're big drops too. And it can take a little bit too, but you see that price, how it comes down, and again, quote unquote, fills that gap. So that's what you're trying to find, and you're trying to match it with flow here. Now, I wouldn't just trade strictly based off you seeing a lot of bid side call premiums here. You need to have multiple data points. So nothing on Meta here, just at first glance. If I'm looking just strictly for gaps, everything's kind of filled there. Costco, let's take a peek at this one. Again, another one, just nothing really there. That price is pretty in line there. And then Oxy, we can take a peek here. Again, another one where it's a massive spike, but price is already kind of in line there. Might be worthwhile to kind of hold off on something like that. So our other one was WDC. So let me pull that one up there. So WDC, good example here from Friday. Large amount of call outflow. Big spike in put premiums here. I am looking for maybe a pullback down to fill this gap at some point here. So we have two names here, and I'm going to pop them up here. So we're going to look at SNDK, and we're going to look at WDC. So we are going to first start with SNDK. So after I identified that big bid side drop here, I'll typically kind of hang out on that overview tab here, and this can all be found under kind of that ticker explorer here. Your overview, it has all your data kind of within that specific name. You can search just the typical stock or individual name there. So I'm just looking at this here. Maybe I want to come down here. I want to see what the highest open interest contracts are. Like, hey, there's 13,000 open contracts here on the 115.27 250 put. That is a little far. Maybe I just want to pop this open, see what's in here. Was it a big whale that was kind of spiked this? So it looks like we had a decent amount of volume kind of come in about the same time here. So let's just kind of maybe go back and take a peek here. Let's pop this back 90 days. Maybe you look, maybe nothing super interesting there. So what I like to do kind of from here, if I look at that, is I like to look at more of the recent changes here. So you will see obviously a lot of kind of weeklies in that highest volume. This is being filmed on Sunday, so this is why I'd say -2 days. I like coming over to that open interest changes tab here. So this has a lot of good information in that. So if you come over to that open interest changes tab, you can see all the open interest. You can see that open interest change here, and then you can also see it by a percent change here too. So you get all that information up here, and this is just for that strike only. So there are 13,000 calls on that 800 strike there. Maybe that is a strike of interest there. And you can also come down here and kind of see it in like a heat map format here. I like this as well too. So like let's look at the open interest here. So if you see this, and when you see that red here, that means there's a negative open interest change there on the day. So let me actually just pop this over to open interest change so I can kind of show you here. So you can see that open interest had a decrease overall here. So you can see 634 puts dropped off that open interest, and it was only 64 kind of calls added to that. So you can see just that kind of clean visualization there where you can kind of see that this name, or this expiration, excuse me, had a lot of open interest kind of drop off there. So you just get that quick visualization there. And like if I'm trying to look at this, so let's pop this back to open interest here. So if I'm looking at open interest here, maybe I'm seeing some action on, and this was a bearish setup. So I'm looking for puts essentially here. So let's see. So we can see there's 16,987 puts on this one here too. So just kind of visually looking at this right now, this one is kind of split here. I mean, there's a lot of kind of upside calls here, maybe some downside puts there. And we are trading at 709. So this is one of those names, again, that's had a lot of volatility. Maybe I want to find something a little closer to the money here, but that 250 call. So we are looking at that 250 strike essentially there. I want to come down here and just kind of look maybe at some expirations that have a lot of open interest on them. So like that 417 has a lot of puts on there. I personally, I kind of like using that contract lookup to do this. There's multiple different ways that you can do this. Again, this is just kind of my way that I'm doing it. So I know that 250 strike has a lot of put action on that there. So let's pop that 250 strike into the contract lookup there and take a peek that way. So it's SNDK 250. So let's just do this. So if I want to look at that SNDK 250, I can just kind of see them all here. And I'm a big tab opener and clicker arounder, so this is something that might be more of interest to somebody else to find a different way, so on. But you can just see like right away, I see there is a lot of open interest on that 250 put, and it looks like it's that 115.27. So I can see that there. And if you come back here and look at that 115 as well too, you can just see all that. It has all that information in here. I do like to kind of look it up this way too, just so I can kind of click around. But you can also obviously just kind of come here and it'll show you that expiration and how much put action is on there. So just kind of two different ways that you can do it. But again, I like to click around because this, if you click this, it won't bring you there. So you just kind of see that face value data. This is just a deeper dive here. So I'm just kind of looking through here. Okay, well, there's a lot of action that came in there on 1.7. Let's just kind of go back there and look. So 1-7. So okay, well maybe this one wasn't very interesting. You can see some of that call premium. It's more of mixed data on this one, and if you come back here too, you can see it's also multi-leg. So this is kind of why just diving into that data helps a lot. Like, okay, well maybe there's nothing of interest on this one, and if you want as well too, we'll get out of the contract lookup, and I'll show you the other way you can look them up as well too. So if you're looking at that chain, so for example, we'll do the 327 since these are the upcoming weeks. So let's say you see that, and I do like seeing that visualization here too. So it's showing you what that put and call is doing from that open interest. So like this one, this is showing there's a drop in calls. You can see that little green line dropping there a little bit. It helps you kind of find maybe on names where like the call one here. So you can see that call one is very highly separated from that put one. So maybe that's something of interest. Again, another good visualization there. But okay, so we're gonna go to that 327 here, and let's just say you want to look at that full kind of chain here. You can just come over to that options chain tab up here, click on that, and we're gonna look at the 327. Just click that, and this will pull up all the strikes for that name in here too. So again, if you just want to do that quick visualization, again, I like the contract lookup. There's multiple ways you can do this. This is just kind of the other way. So if I want to look through this and I kind of want to come down here, it's going to tell you what that volume is on the day here. And when it's purple, it's telling you that volume is greater than that open interest. Now, that open interest plus minus here is good because it will tell you how much of that open interest carried over here. So like, let's say, okay, we're looking at that 700 here. Hey, we got a lot of volume today. There's a big increase in open interest. Maybe I want to take a peek at that. Okay, well, let's go back to Thursday. Okay, well, maybe it was a big bid side candle that caused that. Doesn't look like it was multi-leg, so I mean, it's just different ways. So like, hey, maybe they're selling these calls. Again, nothing in here is financial advice either, but this is just kind of how you find that flow that could be possibly matching up with your big net call premium gaps, which again, we were looking for something bearish. These are if you are selling calls, and we'll just look at this one a little bit here. So now again, when you're looking at a call sell, you're essentially looking for an IV decrease in that spot to be more at the bid side there. So again, IV drops a little bit. These are trading at 45.60, and I like looking at that fill versus spread. When you have these kind of bigger spreads here, this just gives you that good visualization there, and you can see where it's filling essentially compared to the bid and ask. So this is almost more of a mid fill here. It is obviously closer on the bid side because we're right below that little halfway mark. So maybe again more neutral possibly here. Just kind of something to keep in mind. But we pop that out. We'll just say for the sake of things though, this is a call sell just for an example. Now you know that you're looking for bearish activity here on SNDK. Well, hey, now you have your net call premiums. You know this strike is quote unquote bearish. They're neutral to bearish technically if you're selling. So let's see if we can find another one here. Hey, look, there was a lot of volume on that 720 call here for next week. Maybe that's of interest there. Let's take a peek. So a lot of volume on Friday here. I don't see any major whales coming in here, so maybe nothing here. Probably nothing really worthwhile there. We'll give another look here. How about that 720? I think we just looked at the 720. Yes, we did. So let's do. How about that 730 possibly? Again, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe something in here. Maybe not. A little higher multi-leg. Probably nothing I would be looking for in here just because there's a lot of noise going on. Let's see if we can find one. Well, let's look at that 700 put because again, we're looking bearish off that premium there. So, okay, we have a big. So there's a lot of volume on this one on Friday. Again, you're not seeing a big singular entry here. So probably nothing really worth interest on that one. A little higher multi-leg percent there too. Maybe if we take a peek at this. Okay, well we see a big chunk of this is multi-leg, and it looks like they possibly rolled these out. Long put calendar there. I am not a spread trader, so please don't ask me about spreads. that is interesting there. So bid side put there, and you can see that's almost on the bid. So I mean, you're just kind of seeing a lot of data here that's something that might not be sticking out. Let's see if we can find. Let's see if we can find another one in here. So let's go back to our open interest changes. So the other part of this down here is I like looking at that kind of highest open interest increase and that percent increase as well too. So you're going to see that previous day's volume, that previous day's open interest, and then your current open interest there, and what that change percent is there. So I personally like looking for size here, and these would have carried over into Friday. So Friday's done now, obviously, but you can see a lot of volume back there on Thursday, but not a significant open interest change. So this is why I like diving into that data there. So you had 1,400 get added there, but nothing really notable coming in there. So let's see if we can find, and if you kind of look at that by X or by percent too, I'm just always kind of, I like to make sure it's a big amount there because it's obviously doing it by a percent there. So if that percent is coming in there, like you had 58 contracts traded and the previous open interest was only one, this is probably not something significant. So when this does update, I do kind of like to look at that percent. And again, you can come up here and change this to that open interest change by percent. Oops, sorry. And then you can change this to the open interest change by percent. So you get that number in, as well in here. So again, that 327 was seeing a big open interest change there. So you're seeing 4,000, about 84, oh, yeah, right there, 8461 contracts get added to that open interest. So that's where you're seeing that high open interest change. And again, the negative change will be in red like that. So let's just see if we can find one. So okay, you notice this. Well, that 5/1 expiration is getting a high change, but it's not a big contract number. I'm trying to find a big contract number here. So let's see if I can find one that's not 327. Let's do the 4/2 one. So 4/2 2026 has about 19.86% change in open interest, so it increased by almost 20%. You can see some puts were added. A lot of calls were added here, so maybe that's something of interest there. So let's go over to 4/2. Let's open our option chain 4/2. All right, let's take a peek. Let's take a peek. What is being added here? So it looks like that 780 was kind of your big name here, and could these be call cells? Possibly. They are 10% out of the money, a little higher multi-leg. You can see that open interest carrying over. Maybe I want to take a peek at this. So about half that carried over, and this isn't a very good example. It almost looks like, so you got 403 there, 200 there, and then 603. Very similar size candles if you put them together. Probably nothing of interest there, and it is multi-leg, it looks like. Yeah, so I mean, this is what helps you kind of get in there to maybe possibly avoid finding something that's bad, or helps you not get into something that looks super good. So just kind of following this along. I don't see. How about that 740 call? Again, just nothing major, nothing major in there. So that's the nice thing there. Unusual Whales helps you not get into stuff when you shouldn't. So 204 there. I mean, you can see there was an entry and an exit that same day on those. So it's good for that, and that's what the visualization really helps there. So nothing really there. These 730s did get a lot of volume on Friday, so maybe something of interest there. Not really, not really. Just kind of scatter flow all over there. Just kind of looking around here. That 770 does have some decent open interest on it. Let's see when that started coming there. So 318 it looks like. So let's pop this back to the 3-day. Maybe they are buying these calls back, short calls possibly. We won't know till Monday till that open interest updates, but let's just kind of take a peek. Again, another big multi-legger. Another big multi-leg trade in there. What does that Friday flow look like? Again, big multi-leg. So, I mean, it really helps you kind of possibly avoid flow just based off looking at a net premium here. So like SNDK, I'm not really seeing too much, and you can obviously go deeper and deeper into this and look at all those chains and all that. Again, like your open interest changes here, you're gonna see that 392.5 call. There was a 550% increase, and you can just visually get that here, and you can switch between it here. Like the open interest changes here, it's gonna show you, okay, well those 460 puts, or sorry, 450, big drop in those, and then your 310 call and put had some good action on it. And if you wanted to come back here again and look at that 310, you can just open up that contract lookup, SNDK 310, pops it up here as well too if you don't like that other way. And just kind of looking through that open interest, I mean that's all you can do. That's what you have to do. Okay, well that 310 call, possible action. We have 800 open contracts on this. Looks like a lot of this started coming back a while ago. Probably nothing of interest on this one either. Somebody might have got paid here. 1114. 1114, 700. Yeah, you can see that big change in open interest, and haven't really seen anything drop off here. Now this I wouldn't be chasing, obviously. This whale, if they're in and still truly bullish, and this is very deep in the money too, so I will avoid anything super deep in the money, but you can just see how you can come back and visually track that. So just kind of, that was looking at SNDK there again, and you can also see that highest open interest decrease there. So let's move on to, oh, did I say that was SNDK there? Sorry, apologies, that was WDC. Jeez, okay, well, okay, we're gonna look at SNDK now. Oof, that was not fun. Okay, so SNDK now, sorry. Apologies. So SNDK, we are going to look at the open interest changes. Again, you're seeing kind of that call flow up there. I like to look at these in here, that highest open interest increase there. Man, I can't believe I did that. Oof. And we are already half hour into the video, so that is just going to be everybody kind of looking at that like, okay, well, good job. So let's just kind of look at this one. Actually, how about we do MU? We're going to do MU and just kind of look at it in real time and just go from there. So MU, that did have the big drop down in the call premiums there. So, okay, maybe this is something of interest. I haven't looked at MU, so this will be a live one here. Just, I think I might have got SNDK and WDC kind of mixed up in between those halfway through. So we're just going to do MU here. So MU, big drop in net call premium. You also have a big drop back there on March 12th. Let's look at our highest open interest contracts. We have a lot of action on that 327.45 put. Nothing really viable there, it looks like. How about that 515 390 put? There's 19,000 open contracts on these, so that could be something of interest possibly. And let's see when that open interest came in. Was it one whale that kind of did that? And it looks like, yes, it did on 128. So let's go back to 128 and just kind of take a peek here. So here's your 128. You have 19,000 contracts traded there, or sorry, 10,000 contracts traded there on the 28th, followed by another 9,200 there on the 29th. So you see most of that open interest is in there. So again, good example here. Just because it's at the bid there doesn't mean they're closing those, because you can see majority of that volume carried over. So if you're looking at that in real time, you're like, hey, maybe they close those. Again, paying attention to that open interest and volume, huge. So just kind of looking at that. They were in. They're still in whatever these are. Plenty of time on those. So maybe this is something of interest to you, where you see, oh, hey, that MU had a very, very large drop in call premium. These have plenty of time on them. They are one of the highest open interest chains. maybe you want to get that. You see that whale's still in, little discount entry on something like that. And again, just because that whale's still in doesn't mean you need to be in either. So let's look here, MU. So that looks good there. Let's pop this over to the open interest change. And I like to look at that gamma as well too, just to kind of maybe see how that gamma's looking. So how's gamma looking? Gamma's pretty flat here on MU. Saw some negative gamma here, and we'll touch on the gamma in the next part of the video here, but some negative gamma here. I would kind of consider this bearish here. You are seeing some negative net or negative gamma days here, which essentially just means market makers are not supplying liquidity there. Just a very quick basic term on that. I'm looking for, again, this is very similar to the net call premiums. You see the big drops in gamma and then you see the big spikes. Price will tend to eventually, again, quote unquote, fill those gaps. It doesn't always happen, but price tends to gravitate towards those levels. So I would be looking for price to gravitate down here as well. And you can also look at that IV rank here. I learned that IV rank there from Limitless over on Twitter. Very good follow for Gamma. IV cannot go above 100, cannot go below 0. So I kind of in the middle here, just maybe nothing super unusual. Maybe if you see a spike up here a little bit, or spike down, so on. That's kind of what you're looking for, kind of seeing what price does when it spikes up, down. Not really seeing too much on this one. So let's go look at our open interest changes on MU. So this is our full open interest right now on MU. Just kind of see a lot of, it's a lot of calls and puts, again, highly traded name. I'm coming down here, looking at that open interest by expiration. What looks really good here, what name has the biggest open interest. There's a lot of open interest on those 327s. Let's see if we can find something that we will do. How about we do that 515 here? And again, just kind of scrolling over, you can see that change. Oh, how about we do the 424s here, because there is a significant change in that put on that one there. So you can see that open interest is 24,000 there. Well, 17,000 of those are puts there, and you can see that visualization below there. So let's take a peek here at 424. 424, go over to options chains, 424. Okay, let's take a look at our puts here. Well, hey there, look at that. A lot of open interest on that 420 put there. Let's go over here. You can see a lot of that action carrying from 319 coming over. So this looks like a decent piece of flow, just face value. Let's look at the internals here of the flow. MU. Okay, these are interesting to me. These could be of interest here. So I'm just kind of looking at that timing. So when this flow comes in, so IV's kind of bouncing around a little bit here. Now let's see how this does in here. So these are all filling at the ask here, except for that one there. But you are kind of getting a small little ascending fill there. Are filling at the ask for most of that here. Then it kind of drops down a little bit. Maybe not super interesting once you start to look at it, but that big size and big premium there. You get a nice little IV spike there. Fill versus spread, again, you just get that visualization there, and we're filling with the ask. These they're 1% out of the money, 33 days. Now, you know there's a big drop in that net call premium. Hey, maybe this whale traded at 28, they're only 34 right now. Maybe you'll get a little discount there, and you could possibly follow that whale, whatever you want to do. That's an interesting piece of flow there. The MU looks good there. Let's see what else we got in here. So what do we have for open interest? And I like looking at that open interest plus minus. So it's telling you what name got that open interest. So looks like that was kind of our major leader there. Well, now let's look at the 400 because it's had 5,600 contracts traded on the day. Let's see if there's something we can spot on this one. So it's a big bid side candle here. 5% out of the money, 33 days out. Maybe not of interest. Let's take a peek. So when these come in, So this, again, not getting the clearest read on these. So it looks like these kind of started coming in about that 9/18/50, going all the way up to 9/18/54, 55. So we don't know for sure if it's all related here, but they are 5 seconds apart here. This is something of interest to me. I'll kind of look at that whole bunch of data that just came in here. Let's just look here. So that IV is just kind of bouncing around all over. Spot is kind of increasing, then it decreases here. IV is kind of decreasing for some chunks up here, increasing, then we increase again, then we decrease, increase again there. I don't get a clean read off this. I typically like to see that IV increase and continue to increase, or decrease and continue to decrease. This is just kind of hopping all over the place here. I almost would want to lean just knowing what's going on in the market overall and all that. These could be potential puts, or sorry, they could be buying these at the ask here, or buying these at the bid, excuse me. I have a hard time thinking there's short puts being that close to the money. Again, anything can happen, but just kind of combining our other data here, big drop in net call premium. We had the other put we looked at. If we come back to that, sorry, the gamma on this as well. Let's look at the gamma. You have kind of some negative gamma in here. So now you have 3 data points that kind of go together here for MU. So maybe you like that short. Let's go back to the open interest changes and look again. So let's see what our biggest open interest changes were on the day. Hey, look at the previous day's volume here. A lot of volume, especially on these kind of shorter midterms there. So the 424, and then you had the 400. Now you see that weekly here, and you can just come over here, pop that 2-day out. Hey, you can see most of that changed. Come back. These are kind of up a little bit there. Doesn't look like they probably took much for profits, if anything. I would come back to this on Monday, maybe look at that. Again, that 420, this is the one we looked at there. And then, hey, maybe that 327, 382.5 put there. Again, another one that came in on that Thursday. Already kind of made a move. Some volume here. Maybe you want to double check that on Monday as well too. And I'm kind of just skipping over that multi-leg stuff right now. I don't want this to be a heavy flow reading class, just kind of what I'm looking for to find these names. So maybe something of interest on some of these here, and looking at that highest open interest decrease, obviously some weeklies are going to see some names kind of drop off, and this could be something of concern. Well, you see a big drop in open interest on a long dated call. So it looks like, let's go back here. So most of this started coming in, looks like February 6th there. So you can see there, and then it looks like they dropped off. So between that, so 5,100 plus 2,000 there, very close to that kind of 8,000-ish there, and then you had that 8,000 volume there. Big significant drop in that, so maybe that's concerned. Somebody's not bullish anymore, so on there. And then just kind of looking at that open interest change there by percent on this. What else do we have in here? So that 424 is the one we looked at. You can see the open interest total chain increase was 111%. Big spike in the puts. That's the one we looked at there. Could be of interest. So that's just kind of how I like pulling in names for that net call premium gap. Now let's go find the 2 for the daily gamma gaps, and I apologize for the SNDK WDC mix up. So that's why I just wanted to do the MU in real time there and show you how I can kind of just do that in real time there. So let's go back here. So let's go back to the market map. Now let's say you're looking for big spikes in gamma now versus the call premiums there. I'm more of a call premium person. Gamma seems to take a little bit longer to kind of catch up versus net call premiums, but gamma. So we're going to come down to Greek exposure here. We're going to look at the Jack's call gamma here. Again, you can do it however you want. This is just how I like to do it. So for this one, we're going to be looking at NVIDIA and DOC here. So NVIDIA, I do this the same way that I do the net call premiums. NVIDIA, I just start popping them in here, popping them in here. Just going to pop a couple. I don't want to do a million. And then you can also do that the other way as well too. So create exposure. You can do it put wise there too. So you pop in the puts there. We're looking for DOC in here. DOC. I believe I found it on that Jack's call gamma. DOC. So right in here. So you can see how it's an outlier from that name. So now it's going to bring you to that overview page again here too. So let's look at the overview page. That Jack's Dex Vanna Charm tab up here is where you'll find that other information. Pop that in here. I pop it over to that daily gamma. I like to see what that daily gamma is doing. So, okay, this is interesting. The last 2 sessions had negative net daily gamma. This is telling me market makers are essentially kind of pulling liquidity out there. So this is something that sticks out to me. I would consider this bearish looking at it right now. So we're gonna keep this one up. Pfizer, let's look at this one. Gamma. Nothing really of interest in this one. We're pretty in line with our gamma levels here. And again, you just see how those big spikes in gamma, price tends to go up towards that at some point. It can take time, but it's always something of interest to be aware of. And again, you just see those drops there. Price likes to just kind of go along there. Now, again, example 611 here, you had a lot of positive gamma through July. It took a while, but you eventually see those levels hit later here. So again, finding flow and other data points versus just taking the one data point and running with it is big. So nothing really on Pfizer here. We'll look at Ford. A lot of negative gamma, and again, good visualization here where that price is up, and then you just see negative gamma. And there's obviously reasons. Iran war going on right now that caused a lot of negativeness in the market, so that attributes. It's not a line on the chart that caused anything, but you can just see market makers were slowly pulling liquidity out. Big drop down, gap filled. I don't see anything of interest there. T, let's look at T, gamma. We're above that there, so I would almost think this is extended here. I wouldn't be kind of chasing anything there. And it's a good visualization here where you see all those spikes there and prices just kind of hovering above it. Now you have some big negative gamma days here, and again, price will eventually like to move towards that. So if I'm looking at any gaps, well, here it is, 127. Looks like we filled that back from July. So again, it takes time, and you would have to sit through drawdowns if you're just getting it right away. But paying attention to support, resistance, charting the stuff out, absolute game changer. But you just see how that price gravitates towards it. So like right now, we're pretty extended from here. I'm nothing of interest on that one for me. PCG, let's just look at this one. Gamma. So again, another one that I would almost consider this bearish. There's still, market makers are still supplying some liquidity, but it's not as much as what we were seeing back here. And again, a good visualization of price where you can see we're just kind of chopping down here, and then we just slowly come back down. Hey, look, our levels are pretty much hidden here. And then our big spike in the daily gamma there. Hey, our prices are now looking to essentially, be hit here. So again, that highest point back from September of last year just got filled at the beginning of March here. So it can take time. But again, that price likes to go towards those levels. So this is something that might catch my eye. I like to personally see kind of maybe some negative gamma here, but something that could be of interest. And DOC here, which is one that we're going to look at. stock. So this is one of interest to me. You are seeing a lot of positive gamma, and it's been increasing, and price has not caught up to this yet, not caught up to it. And again, just doesn't mean because it's a spike up there doesn't mean it's going to catch up tomorrow. Again, it can take time. So let's look at our two names here. So I'm looking, and I will pretty much do the same setup that I do for the net premiums. I'm just looking for that identifiable gap essentially on the market map, and then I do the internal data. So okay, the daily gamma here, you see it's bearish. Okay, let's go look at the overview. So I'm going to look at that premiums too again here. Well, we saw there was net call premiums, but price isn't really aligned with this one. So price is already kind of extended a little lower. Maybe nothing premium wise you see on that one, but you're not seeing bullishness overall there while you're technically bearish. So you come down here, look at that highest open interest contracts. A lot of those are weeklies, and Nvidia is a highly traded name too, so you are going to see a lot more volume on something like that. Maybe nothing in there. So let's go look at our open interest changes here. So open interest, let's look at our changes here. We're seeing some call action there on the 180, and I want to look at that open interest change by percent again in here, just see what we got. And actually, let's just do open interest change here first. I want to find a big number here. So a lot dropped off here. Again, you can see it's red how you're seeing negative open interest increase overall. Just kind of looking here, just looking for any outliers. Everything's pretty, so that 327 on the call side did get a big spike, so that could be something of interest that we go back and take a peek at here. But let's just kind of keep scrolling along here. Yeah, I'm not really seeing much for this one, so let's do it by percent and see what we got. So 21, so we got 30%, and I'm looking for puts because I'm looking to short possibly. So let's just kind of look, maybe nothing here. Yeah, I'm not seeing too much here. Maybe this, how about that 1016? Because you can see we had 6,397 puts get added, only 307 calls. There's a lot of put volume on this 1016 strike. So let's go look at that in our options chain. So 1016. All right, let's go take a peek in here. So we had a big put, or a lot of open interest carry over into that 140 strike. So let's go look at that. So you can see just kind of the last 3 days had a lot of volume here. So let's do this. So again, this is why it's important to look at it. Now when I'm seeing this, these look like no side, probably cross trades possibly. Cross trade here. So it's an opener, but it's a cross trade. Cross trades are junk. I do not even waste my time on them. So, okay, maybe this is nothing of interest. Again, it's very long term. Doesn't look super good. Now, if these were ask side, possibly, and now you have multi-leg here, and this is... I would not follow something like that. Nothing of interest on that one. How about... what else we got on this one? So maybe... you see a lot of volume on that 130 put there for that expiration. Again, no side there, so nothing of interest. 135. And I'm seeing call, I'm seeing ask, mid and bid side. Probably nothing of interest there. The 170, that's the one we looked at originally. How about that 175? Again, this is why it's important to look through that, because you're seeing it's a lot of no side. It's nothing very interesting here. And I mean, you can look at the call side as well too and see if they are maybe bid side calls there. So again, 48% on the money, 99% multi-leg. It's probably junk. So it's important to kind of come in here and look. So nothing interesting on that strike there. And I see how I messed up and went to that WBD, or I think we were looking at SNDK at first, and then I just accidentally closed that tab, and we did that. So okay, let's go back here in NVIDIA. So let's go back to our open interest changes. And again, that you get that visualization here. So I mean that 179 or that 180 has a lot of call open interest change added to it. So again, if you want to do it this way too, that contract lookup, we're going to do the NVIDIA 180 call. NVIDIA 180 call. Okay, let's see. Oh, we got a lot of open interest on that one. A lot of open interest kind of throughout this strike here. So we'll look at that 323, or we'll look at the 327 here. That has the most open interest. That's not expired, it looks like. So let's just come down here, take a peek, see if there's a big whale that did something there. Well, we had 55,000 contracts traded on the 19th and another 54,000 traded today. That is something interesting there to me. Now let's just kind of pop this back and look. A lot of bid side stuff here. Probably nothing notable of interest on something like that. Maybe they were short calls here at 260 and they're buying them back at 189 here throughout the day. Who knows? Just nothing very singular of interest on something like that. So NVIDIA there, just kind of wanted to go through that and just kind of looking at that highest open interest increase. So now here, when I see that highest open interest by increase, this is something that I like to see. So there's a lot of previous day volume against very light open interest versus now if this was like that 20 contracts and its previous day open interest of 1, that's not really of interest there to me. So that 330-125 put, very interesting. Okay, these could be interesting. 28% out of the money, kind of far for weeklies. And A399. Ivy's dropping. I almost would say these are short puts here, just kind of looking at them there. And also, if you're new, you can always pop it into the option profit calculator. These are 8 days out, 28% out of the money. Theta is very, very aggressive on them. You can pull it up in the contract or the option profit calculator kind of table, and it will show you contract decay. You can come up here, kind of build the strategy how you'd like. But you look at that delta to theta, there's barely a delta on these, and that theta is going to eat those away. It's 3 cents a day. If NVIDIA doesn't move, these contracts were priced at 5 cents. These more than likely are going to be worthless on Monday when we open. And just kind of looking at it from, like, if you were long these puts, you need a significant decrease. So tomorrow's the 23rd. You need at least like probably a 3% drop there to even see anything, and you just see how aggressive theta is and just eats those away. The price doesn't have to move and they'll collect that premium. So I think those might have been short puts on that one. So let's see what else we got here. Any other big changes in here? Previous day volume, so a lot of call volume on that, a lot of long dated stuff there. Maybe nothing super of interest. How about shorter dated, highest open interest increases? Yeah, just a lot of calls. And NVIDIA, again, one of those names that is highly traded, so it's gonna see a lot more liquidity. So that's just kind of the overview on NVIDIA there. Let's do DLC and then we'll kind of wrap this up here. So DLC, we pulled that up in the market map. I'm going to close that. Big spike in that net, or the daily gamma. I'm so used to the net premiums because, again, I'm more of a fan on that. So let's look at that daily gamma here. Big spikes. Price hasn't really caught up to that yet. And you can also come down here and just kind of look at that net gamma on the different strikes there. So you can always adjust that in here as well too. Looks like it's all on that 17.5 strike there. You can also come down here, change the stuff around the expiration, so on. I usually don't use a lot of this stuff down here. I just kind of more look at that daily gamma more so. So let's go look at our open interest changes. There's our 20 call, seeing a lot of action there, and this one does not have a ton of let's do open interest changes, sorry. This doesn't have a ton of expiration, so this one's a lot easier to kind of find something on, I would say, versus like NVIDIA. So we are looking for that 20 strike here. So what name had a lot of kind of open interest change there? So it looks like that 717 is getting a lot of open interest changes there. So you can see it's 146 on that call. This is 500 in total, 512. So again, that's going to be kind of across everything, but that 717 is seeing a lot of action there. So let's go look at our options chains. Let's go look at our 717, sorry. So okay, let's take a peek here. Open interest plus minus. Okay, well, we had some open interest change on that 20, and that 17.5 is the one we were looking at. So maybe nothing of interest on this one, just because there's already been a lot of previous open interest on this one. Maybe nothing of interest on that. Let's just kind of pop it back. Yeah, kind of messy anyways there. Probably nothing there. So this is why, again, really good example of always going back and looking at that. So you can see, I mean, there was some open interest change, but it wasn't anything significant. And now we look at the 20. Again, let's go 2 days there. So only 86 carried over. So it's telling you that high percent change, but it's, you come in here and look, it's not good. So that's the importance of that. But you might look at this and say, hey, that 15 call has a lot of open interest on it. Maybe that's something of interest to me. Come down here. Now, just because there's nothing traded on it doesn't mean that it's not interesting. A lot of this started to kind of come in here, it looks like end of January here. So maybe something of interest here, and it looks like somebody possibly added to it, but we know that original whale looks to still be in with possibly the secondary whale. Same whale, we don't know, because that open interest has not changed. So let's just kind of go and take a look at this. So here is that original entry there, 754 contracts there on the 28th. Let's go take a peek. Let's take a peek. 128. It's not going to cooperate for me. Sometimes it doesn't like cooperate if it's that far back. But then we had the 296 come in here. Let's just take a peek at that. These are pretty deep in the money too, so they could be a little fussy. But this could be something of interest here, knowing there's some good volume on that one, the 117, and you know that gamma is up. Let's see, what else do we got here? Let's go back to our option screener, or our open interest change, excuse me. So let's look at it just by open interest. So again, that 17.5 is the one that we looked at. And now if you wanted to look at it another way, contract lookup, doc 17.5, and it was a C, so we were looking for that call. So, oh hey, that 320 had a lot of open interest, but we're expired there. That 417 has that volume, which we just looked at. How about that 115, possibly a lot of open interest on these? Or we'll go with the 717. There's 800 open interest contracts on that one. So just kind of looking at that historical here. This might have been the one we looked at there, actually. Yeah, just a lot of kind of contracts changing hands here. Just not a lot of open interest increases. Probably nothing super worthwhile there. DLC 17.5. C again. We'll do that 4.7. No, that's the one we just looked at. Jeez. Okay. DLC 17.5 call. We will do the 115.27. Maybe this is interesting, maybe not. Yeah, nothing super interesting there. So how about we look at it by the change percent here? So you can always flip it there, but I will usually come down here and look. So okay, you're bullish on this name. Hey, we had previous day volume come in here. You see the highest open interest increases are pretty much all calls here, and you're seeing that it's mostly ask side volume here. So this is what catches my interest here. So let's go look at that 515.20 call. Those came in. So again, another good example here, 200 there, about 200 there. That carried over. Let's just kind of look at that there on that day. Sorry, let's go here. So it's not a lot of volume, but it's something that could be interesting there. 26, and then you got 24 seconds later. Looks like kind of a little descending fill possibly there. Is it related? We don't know. It's only one contract. They're $15 contracts. Interesting there. Let's look at that second candle. So most of that all coming in here. It is coming in more on the ask side there. That bid ask is a very odd bid ask where it's 0 and then the ask is 20 there. Not a lot of liquidity on it, so that's kind of why you're seeing that. Looks like it did kind of run a little bit after hours too. A lot can happen over the weekend though, but could be of interest there. And you also look at the net call premiums too. Price is pretty in line with those, but let's go back to that overview. You are seeing kind of a spike here on Friday, so that is something that I would like to see. Now you do have that other big spike down here back from the 13th, which price has not gravitated towards yet fully. So now if I was maybe looking for this and I like this on a longer term, well, hey, maybe I'll wait for that gap to kind of fill down here, then maybe I'll look for calls, so on, come back and go through my open interest changes. Let's just do one more quick little look through here. So that open interest. And I'm going to actually do it by changes here, by percent. So negative new or a negative open interest increase overall. 2. So that was the highest one there. So yeah, not too much of that. Actually, let's go look at that 10/16 expiration. So you had 20 calls added. It's not significant. Again, kind of paying attention to those calls and puts there. It's 20 contracts, so it's a 6% increase, but it's not like it's 10,000 contracts added. But we'll go look at that 10/16 expiration. Options chains, 10/16. So that 20 had the small open interest change there. Nothing else traded on that expiration. Again, probably not much there. I don't consider this a whale. Maybe you want to look and see what other names have open interest on here. Again, not a very highly liquid traded name there. So you've had examples of a highly traded name like Nvidia versus a lower traded name. I almost would probably say I prefer the lower traded name to finding the actual overall kind of flow there versus the higher liquidity names. The higher liquidity names, I would almost say you can kind of get a better just full overview of the name versus looking at kind of these smaller, lightlier traded names where you're kind of looking for a very specific whale. But yeah, that was just kind of a way I like to use that market map there to find the big spikes in net call premium, gamma, and then we use our contract lookup, open interest changes, overview page, options chain tab, just to kind of maybe narrow down some names there. So I didn't find a specific contract I liked for any of those, but I just kind of want to go through that process for everybody. But if you are interested in trying unusual whales and getting access to all this data, I do have a 10% off code in the description that you can use. Again, a little more of an intermediate video. This isn't a very beginner-friendly video, just kind of showing you my process. But thank you for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will have more of these soon. Have a great one, everyone.